Welcome to Hangar Talk. Donn, Heikkila, and you are with Professional Instrument Courses. Tell us what PIC is. I think I know, but our listeners might need a refresh.
Sure, yeah, be happy to help. And thanks for having me on, Dave. So, Professional Instrument Courses, this is our 45th year celebrating service to the industry. We've been training instrument pilots for 45 years.
Congrats.
In a unique way, thank you. So we actually travel most of the time to the client's location.
Right.
So we send our experienced CFIIs out. They come equipped with a simulator and a workbook that the client gets to keep. And we conduct, it's a combination of ground school, simulator time, and actual flight time. And we have two different courses. We have our full 10-day course, and those are for clients that have little to no instrument time.
Okay.
They just kind of got their private pilot and they want to use more utility of the airplane or insurance reasons.
That happens a lot these days. Absolutely. If you bought an airplane that's new to you, the insurance company wants to know that you are fit to go, and they might want an instrument rating. Absolutely.
Yeah, we see that a lot, particularly in anything that's complex or high performance.
Okay.
The rates are usually higher if you're not instrument rated.
Okay. And then most people who take who pass their private pilot, they only have a minimum of hours under the hood or simulated or actual instrument, but just a handful.
Correct. What they need coming into for their private pilot is just 3 hours. So we have trained clients that have had as little as 3 hours for sure. And then we've had other clients that come in and they've put in, kind of like yourself, that has put in significant training time and never, was able to attain the rating. So we offer a modified course there, and we call that our IFR finish-up course.
Okay.
So we come in and we don't just fill the gaps. We kind of go through and make sure that you're up to speed with everything in the ACS, so that way you're not tripped up on the check ride by something you may have done 5 or 6 years ago. So it's a very thorough course, but it usually ranges anywhere from 3 to 7 days, the finish-up does.
And that also is the instructor coming to the pilot.
Correct, yeah. I mean, I would say in 90% of the cases, we're traveling to the client's location, to the pilot.
Let me interrupt you real quick and just to ask, there's got to be more than one instructor. I mean, you're running the show. How many instructors do you have now?
We've got about 22 instructors on staff.
Okay.
Some guys are doing this, legitimately like 15, 20 days out of the month. And then we have other instructors that are being like, hey, I'd like to do one assignment a month. So we've got a fair mix, and they come from different backgrounds of flying. We've got some retired airline guys. We've got retired military, charter. But these guys, as I like to put it, they either have some gray hair or they have no hair.
Gotcha, man.
These are experienced guys that are coming into this. We have 3 instructors on staff that have been with us for over 20 years.
Oh, man, that's longevity.
Yeah. But yeah, these guys have been there, done that in terms of flying. So they're now passing on their experience to other pilots. And, not only are they good pilots, but they're even better instructors in terms of passing on that message.
That's something I was going to ask you about. And again, I apologize if I interrupt a little bit, but I'm curious because some people can, walk the walk and talk the talk. But does a good instrument pilot make a good instrument instructor? And what do y'all do to ensure that that does happen?
Yeah, so first of all, we do a little bit of screening process, bringing instructors in. So we actually have a 4-day standardization course that we bring, potential instructors in, and we find out if they're going to be a good fit. Because you can have somebody, and no offense to freight dogs, but you could have somebody that's got 20,000 hours of total flight time and has, 100 hours of dual given, and they've never really used their CFII.
Okay.
So we're always looking for guys that have given a lot of dual given and that they've taught. We find that that's more effective for sure going through our course. So the nice part is, our instructors are dealing with all different sorts of folks. I mean, we train, as I like to put it, we train folks from brain surgeons to bricklayers.
All right.
And that goes kind of the same thing with the airplane. We're seeing different airplanes, different avionics. So our instructors are that, they're very good of adapting and, teaching to, someone's specific needs, whether they struggle here with this or, hey, I need to program my GTN 750 better. So those are the types of instructors that, we have on board.
All right, that sounds good. The company itself, Professional Instrument Courses, you said at the outset that you guys are celebrating 45 years. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I'm going to take this moment to remind people of the website, which is iflyifr.com.
Correct.
Very cool. How did you start with the company?
Yeah, so I started in 2006. So this is my 19th year with the company. I was with another aviation company. Wasn't really doing much on the flying end. It was all flight ops. And I was reading Trader Plane one day, and I saw an ad for professional instrument courses. They were looking for a sales position. So I was like, well, this could be a good, foot in the door. At the time they were, they were like celebrating their 25th or 26th, anniversary. So I was like, I'm going to check into it. So I called and they had me in for an interview. And before you know it, I was hired and, moved to Connecticut.
Okay.
Yeah.
You moved to Connecticut, but you were not far away from Connecticut to begin with.
I was not. Well, my wife and I were living in Massachusetts at the time, but I was doing a lot of traveling for this other company. The other company actually owned 3 747 Classics, and they were all based overseas in the UAE, not far from Dubai. So
oh, wow.
I was doing a lot of traveling, whether it would be, you'd kind of meet the airplane either in Dubai or the airplane went to Sweden. Sometimes I would have to go. So it was all over the place.
What were you doing? I mean, what was your function with that company?
Pretty much I wore a lot of hats there.
Okay.
So I was doing a lot of just helping with like flight ops, but my official title was a technical manager. The company was a good company. They were good guys, but they were always operating on a shoestring budget. So everybody wore a lot of different hats.
Okay, sure. Small company, but had to have a couple of bucks to have 3 747s.
But yeah, it was a great experience for sure. But, I could kind of see a little bit of the writing on the wall and being like, I mean, and I think after I left, I think they may have flown like one more year after that.
All right, so you got yourself into the fold, I would say, and that was about, what year was that, approximately?
That was 2006.
2006.
Yep.
And then, coincidentally, our paths crossed back then. And you were a brand new instructor with PIC, and I was in Atlanta, and you reminded me of this, and I thought that I'd heard of the company before, and so what happened?
Yeah, so I remember getting an inquiry sheet, and I looked it up because I remember seeing, obviously we got in touch, and I saw the name. I was like, that name looks familiar.
Uh-huh.
And we keep pretty good records here at PIC, so I looked at it, and I was like, wow, I was like, Dave Toulis owned a Mooney, and I had personally called and talked to you. It was like August of 2006.
That's right, man. That's right.
And I ended the comments on there was like, it's a maybe.
Uh-huh.
Because you were kind of in between, like you weren't sure if you really wanted to pursue the rating or not.
Well, there you go. Our paths crossed, and now they're crossing 20 years later. I think that's very cool.
Exactly.
All right, so now the whole industry went through a little bit of a trouble and a little bit of an upheaval during COVID.
Yes.
No exception here at AFPA. A lot of our work was remote. How did PIC adapt at that point, and what happened chronologically that was of significance at the company?
Sure. Yeah. So COVID was, very interesting for us because Tom Seymour took over the company and there was a little bit of upheaval in 2009, obviously, with the real estate crash, et cetera. So
right.
He came on and took over as president. He brought me on as vice president. And so Tom and I were pretty much running the company through, 2020.
Okay.
That was Tom's 40th year being at PIC, or 39. And he wasn't looking to get out, but I think COVID was a solution, kind of being like, we had already decided within a year that I was going to replace him as president.
Okay.
And we were going to bring somebody else on. But yeah, chronologically wise, COVID hits. We had hired a local instructor to kind of take over the ops. His name's John Lampson. He's a local CFII that's, 10,000 hour pilot, highly experienced.
That's great.
So John gets hired, and within a month, Tom decides, I'm out. I'm retiring.
Well, he had been there though, for decades.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah. I mean, and it was, we were all operating, remotely at the time. But, the reverse with COVID for us, I mean, it was actually busy.
We found that too. A lot of folks went back into aviation.
Yeah.
Number one, you could not fly on a commercial airliner anyway at a lot of places.
Sure.
And then a lot of people had an interest in aviation and they had put it on the back burner and they figure, oh, this is a pretty good time for that. Now, as instructors, you did have to take precautions. I know I wrote a few stories about this.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was also the Embry-Riddle folks did a study on mask fatigue when you had to wear masks in the cockpit.
Yep.
So you did find a lot of folks went back and started their studies.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually trained quite a bit, and we had to kind of jump through all those hoops that you mentioned. So, mask protocol, then, we had to send the instructors out with letters that they were important people to go out there and train other folks so they could travel. Because you remember they were like, oh, they didn't want really people traveling from state to state.
Right.
So, they went out with a letter and, believe it or not, a couple of instructors, kind of got stopped at the border, if they were traveling and being like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, we're of significance because, we're important people to train.
That's right. You guys had the exception that you were, I think the term was essential personnel.
Essential personnel. Yes, that's exactly what it was. Yeah, good call. So so we sent that out, but yeah, we were quite busy with it. And, it came down to a lot of the fact that, there weren't a ton of hotels open either.
Uh-huh.
So, again, the majority of our folks, are traveling to the client's location. So it was a lot of logistics to get it worked out. But we found that, 2021 was really actually a busier time, believe it or not. I mean, it was crazy where, the amount of training that we did that year.
How many students do you think professional instrument courses has seen come through the turnstiles?
10,000 maybe. Again, we train hundreds of pilots each year.
Okay.
So, we're averaging, I would say, about 100 instrument ratings per year.
Times 45 years.
Yeah. And again, back in the mid 90s when we had 60 instructors at that point.
Okay.
That was crazy. I mean, so they were training, probably 500 instrument rated pilots a year. And then obviously, the pie gets a little smaller because people see, kind of what we're doing.
Yeah.
And, it's like, hey, I can do that.
Yeah.
And, so, the 90s were really good. And then 9/11 happened. And,
right.
GA kind of suffered a bit from that. So things started to get, a little smaller. But, we've still been very busy, very active in doing what we do.
So professional instrument courses, I guess the slang for that is that you guys are the OG, the old guard.
We are. Yeah, we are the pioneers for sure, particularly doing what we do. There are other fine schools out there, but most of the time it's, people travel to them.
Yeah, and then your instructors are traveling to the folks at the folks' home base.
Yeah.
So now someone must have traveled to Hollywood, Los Angeles, because you have Kurt Russell, right?
Yes.
You have Tom Cruise.
Yep.
That took your courses. And you've got a few others. Sidney Pollack, the director.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And Jimmy Buffett is a PIC graduate.
Jimmy Buffett as well. So
that's great.
Yeah, all those guys were, kind of in the mid 90s.
Uh-huh.
As the story went, as I believe, Kurt Russell was kind of the first one to start it off.
Okay.
Because he was, he was an active GA pilot. He brought us in. And from what I remember hearing was Kurt and Goldie Hawn, they were together. And it was, the instructor said it was like dealing with any other husband and wife. There was no like fluff in terms of importance. It was just like, hey, like you and I talking like any other person. Like
they seem pretty cool.
Yeah, like really good people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Kurt, I think, somehow got in touch with Tom Cruise, right. And this was obviously after Top Gun. And Tom Cruise actually did the training at the time in Italy in a Marchetti.
Oh, those are cool airplanes.
Yeah, so that's what he did it in.
Yeah.
And that was obviously back before 9/11. So, you could do that. There was actually a designated pilot examiner in Europe. So, we sent an instructor over there to do it. So we had him, and then Sidney Pollack, Jimmy Buffett. Athletes, we've had Mark Martin.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about athletes. The NASCAR drivers for a long while flew themselves.
Yes.
And that was to enable them to get from race to race a lot quicker. A lot of golfers did that too. Mark Martin was a key racer. I cover a little bit of NASCAR when I'm not at AOPA, do some photography and photo editing.
Mm-hmm.
I would say maybe for 10 years, the NASCAR world really traveled themselves to race. Now, they now are more or less in 18-wheelers, and they camp out very close to where they compete, so they can just wake up and roll out of the RV and go to the track. That it was quite different back in, I guess, the 90s and the early 2000s.
Yeah, I believe Mark, after he got his instrument rating, went shortly on to, multi-engine, then went into a jet. I think he, got a Citation and started flying a Citation. It was some sort of a biz jet that he was flying to, get back and forth to races. Sidney Pollack was the same thing. He went in, he got his instrument rating, spent a little time in multi-engine, and then went right into a jet.
Nice. Well, look, tell folks how they can get in touch with you and what a typical scenario would be for me and folks like myself who want to finish up and jump back in and knock that IFR rating out finally after all these years.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to our website, iflyifr.com, or you can call our 800 number. So it's 800-435-9437, and that's 800-IFLY-IFR.
There you go.
Yep. So the normal protocol would be either to fill out a form from our website or, pick up the phone, old traditional methods to give us a call. And what we do is, you would typically talk to myself or perhaps John, our ops manager.
Okay.
And we get some background on. So we find out what you're flying, what your total time is. Do you have any previous instrument training?
Right.
So sort of kind of get that background feel. Have you taken the knowledge exam yet? Because to finish the course in a 10-day time frame, our two prerequisites are we like the knowledge exam taken and passed.
Okay.
And we want to see the pilot with 40 plus hours of cross-country time as pilot and commands.
Oh, well, that's like hardly nothing, I would think.
It really is. Yeah, it's not much, but that's what we'd like to see for sure.
Okay.
And then, so once we kind of go through that, we describe the program to them. So the program, is essentially, hey, we send an instructor to your location. They're going to bring with them a copy of our workbook, which the client gets to keep, and an FAA-approved digital simulator. So the simulator, it doesn't cover all avionics, but it covers a good amount. And what the simulator does, it doesn't fly like the actual airplane.
Okay.
And people have to get over that because they're like, well, it doesn't fly like my airplane. It's not supposed to.
Okay.
Really, with the design of the simulator, where it really helps the pilot is, one, it gets their scan cemented. So it really reinforces their scan because scan is king in instrument flying. And then two, it really helps with the procedure side. So you can make a mistake and then the instructor can pull the airplane back out by a couple miles and say, hey, listen, you missed the vector I gave to you and you blew right through the final approach course. Let's pull it back and let's do it again. So you can make mistakes and you can talk about it in the airplane.
So an instructor comes to my location with a simulator.
Yeah. Most of the time we set it up, I would say 90% of it, clients set it up at their house. So that way they have full access to it when the instructor is not there. So if they're like, hey, I want to shoot that RNAV approach that we ended with today that I felt like I wasn't 100% on, they can do it.
That is awfully cool. And if they have their own airplane, then what? How does that factor into the equation?
Yeah, so then we go from the simulator session, we go out to the airplane and we go perfect the procedure in the air.
Okay.
So, whether you're working on holds that day or you're working on approaches, it's a combination of ground school, simulator time, and actual flight time.
Do they have to have an airplane to do this?
They don't. We actually do have some instructors that either have access or own training aircraft.
Okay.
So that is an option with us where they don't have to own, but I would say 85% of our clients are owners
Okay.
that do this.
Okay.
Or they're in a club. They're in, some sort of a club for sure.
Where they do have access.
Yes.
But one way or the other, they're going to get time in an actual aircraft as part of the PIC.
100%. Yeah, you have to, obviously, because you need the 40 hours of simulated instrument time.
Okay.
So typically 10 hours are in the sim. So that sim's good for 10 hours.
Okay.
And then they'll log, they usually have, 3 to 5 hours coming in. And sometimes more, as we know.
Okay.
Then they're going to log, roughly about 27 hours of flight time to accumulate the 40. So our clients standard are usually taking the check ride within 40 to 42 hours of instrument time logged.
Okay. So about 25 hours of actual instrument flying with an instructor in a real airplane.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. 25 to 27 is the number that we typically are looking at.
Wow. You got to nail down pretty good if it's 25 to 27. That's great.
Yes.
All right. So let's pivot a little bit to some of your personal flying. So you went through the ranks of the program. You started as a private pilot. You got your instrument rating. You moved up. You got your multi-engine. I'm guessing you got your CFI as well.
Yeah, so I actually, interestingly enough, I get to PIC. I'm not instrument rated, not doing, a lot of flying. But I'm like, I have the simulator because the part of the prerequisite for the PIC basically was to have a job here was you had to have a private pilot's license. So I fit that bill, but, they really would have liked, like, hey, you got to get an instrument rating because this, we're teaching instrument.
Yeah, it doesn't look right. Yeah.
Totally get it. And I had a bunch of instrument time like yourself. And so I was like, well, I'm in a really good setup here because I have access to simulators. I've got the PIC manual, and we had a local instructor that was in Connecticut at the time. And his name was Dale Plumley. And I have to comment on this because he was just such a great guy, but he was like the Forrest Gump of aviation.
All right.
He was an Air Force pilot, and he had flown in Vietnam. He flew B-52s, he flew Caribous, you name it. Like he had flown it, and he knew everybody or had a connection with everybody in aviation. He was always, if you said, oh, Clay Lacey, he's like, oh yeah, I flew a citation for him, one time, or he was just so involved with it. So he took me under his wing, and we used the PIC method of ground school, simulator time, and actual flight time to finish up the rating.
Nice.
So then I proceeded from there to, get my commercial multi-engine instrument. And then, we had a client who was recommended to us. He was trying to get a couple of his pilots to finish up their instrument rating. They had their commercial restricted. And this gentleman's name was Chris Clucune, and he was the owner of Avwatch.
Okay.
And Chris, we finished up his couple pilots, and he always said, hey, if you're ever interested, in doing some flying, let me know. So I had called him and I said, hey, do you have any part-time work? And he said, hey, listen, we're flying Cessna Skymasters for marine mammal surveys, and that would be a good gig. Like, hey, you want to come up and give it a try?
Yeah, that would be fun.
And the only caveat to that was, well, before you do that, you got to go to Dunker school.
Yeah, well, you're flying over the ocean. You better know how to egress.
I had to go to Dunker school at Survival Systems in Groton. And that was an experience. Certainly, you tend to learn how to remain cool under pressure, for sure. You can really get anxiety and get nervous doing that type of stuff where you're under the water.
And upside down, and it's dark.
Upside down, but the staff there does a great job. I've been through it actually 2 times now.
Okay.
And I won't say it gets easier each time you do it. That's not the case.
But you know how to do it. You hope you never have to use that skill.
Exactly. Yeah, there are certain things, but just the training itself, if you ever have a chance to do it, I would highly recommend it.
Well, how rewarding is flying for these marine mammal surveys? I mean, what is that like?
Yeah, it's a very cool gig. The company that we fly for or contract us, they're called Center of Coastal Studies, is what we do the majority for. And their focus is the right whales.
Okay.
And the right whales are extinct almost. There's only like 365 of these.
Oh, man.
And the Center of Coastal Studies is so passionate about this program, they can actually identify these right whales with, a camera through binoculars, and they have names and all, they have names or numbers.
So they can individually identify the characters.
They can spot, it's amazing how they can spot this stuff. And now we're looking at it from 1,000 feet, because we're 1,000 feet, 100 knots. And I'm just kind of like, well, I can see a right whale, but that's, it's all I can see.
Yeah.
But they're with binos, and they're taking photos of it, and it's amazing what they can pick up on and see.
Do you fly a grid or a certain kind of a pattern?
Yeah, usually the surveys are set up, and it is kind of a grid-like pattern. So I would say 70% of the ones we do usually are Cape Cod Bay. The right whales love Cape Cod Bay during the winter time and early spring because it's a huge feeding ground for them. So we do a ton of work off of Cape Cod, Mass Bay, Eastern Outer Shores. That's where the majority of those surveys take place.
Okay. And you and I talked the other day, and I mentioned that I thought that company also did some work down around Georgia, because I'm from Atlanta.
They do, yeah. So the company now is Nimbus Aerial Solutions that is doing it.
Okay.
Avwatch got sold during COVID to Technology Service Corporation, and then it kind of morphed for Technology Service Corporation said, well, we no longer want to do marine mammal survey. So a pilot from at the time at Technology Service Corporation decided, hey, I'm going to take over the marine mammal surveys.
So they follow the whales south. I guess they start out where it's cold up in the Northeast, and they'll make their way south.
That's correct. Yeah. So right now, a majority of them are up in Canada, Bay of Fundy, Gulf of Maine. Like they go quite a ways up, and then they start working their way down in the fall time frame towards the warmer waters, and that's kind of their breeding ground. So they'll go Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia as well. And then we start seeing them migrate up in this area towards the end of the fall. So usually, if we're lucky, we'll spot one in maybe December, and then it starts to get really busy January, February, March. And then come about mid-May, they leave. They're gone.
And they're going north at that point. Gotcha. That's got to feel good to take some of that aviation knowledge and give back to the greater community.
100%. Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun doing it. And believe it or not, most of the time, it's an all-visual gig. We only fly in VFR.
I was going to guess that.
But you are actually using your instrument skills because you are essentially following a grid.
Okay.
You're trying to keep it at 1,000 feet and 100 knots, so you're constantly scanning.
You got that scan going as if you're on instruments, but it's a visual gig.
It's a visual,
Understood.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, what they're essentially doing as soon as they spot a whale, all the photos are done from the left side of the airplane. So, we'll be turning left. So it's kind of like NASCAR.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, always going left. Yeah.
Pretty cool gig.
Giving back to the greater aviation community, that's awesome. And giving back to pilots like myself, longtime instrument students that might need to knock this out with professional instrument courses. And you guys have a great history. Sort of wrapping up, 45 years in the business. You've been at the helm for about 5 years now?
5 years. Yeah, 5 years now.
And what's next on the horizon for the PIC courses? What do you have going on?
Well, we're continuing to do what we've done for 45 years is, primarily training instrument pilots. So training folks to get their initial instrument rating, or we're keeping them proficient and current with our IFR refresher course. So we do a lot of pilots to, they're, maybe a year or two out of instrument currency and they haven't flown. Or when basic med came in, we had a lot of folks that hadn't flown instruments in a while.
Gotcha.
And, we started training folks there because they didn't think that they were going to get a chance to fly again. And then basic med kind of opened up a new door for them.
Sure.
We did a lot of instrument recurrency at that point in time, too. So we're doing what we've always been doing is our focus is on instrument flying, but We'll do all the advanced ratings, commercial, multi-engine, etc. But the focus is, for us is instrument flying. We don't do any private pilot finish ups or anything like that.
No, you already have to be a PPL before you get going.
Yeah, we don't do anything like that training wise. So if somebody were to call us up and saying, hey, I'm trying to finish up my private pilot, our recommendation is, hey, go to your local flight school to get it done. That's not us. That's our specialty and has been for 45 years.
Not to put you on the spot too much, but how much can a instrument student expect to spend financially to get it done? I mean, can you ballpark that at all?
Yeah, I can ballpark it for you. So we charge it's a daily rate for us. Okay. Whether it's a 10-day course or a finish up course. So obviously, the faster you can go through the program, the less money that you're going to pay for it. So, if you were to do our full 10-day course, for the training itself, it's going to run you around $7,000.
That's reasonable in my opinion. That's reasonable.
Yeah, that's not going to include, obviously, the aircraft time, budget in the fuel, and then the instructor's travel and lodging.
Okay.
I would say all in, if you're doing the full 10-day course, you're probably looking at $10,000, $10,500 to get it done, which is actually a pretty good savings if you're, most of the time what we see if guys that are doing this locally and they train once a week, they usually end up doubling the hourly requirements. They're usually
probably so
70, 80 hours. So when you start doing the multiplication there of, okay, well, I have my instructor, I've got to pay for the fuel, and, I'm doing this once a week and I'm just really not making headway. It makes a huge savings, because in the end, if you did it with the local, I would say, it probably ends up running you somewhere between $14,000, $15,000 to do it.
I gotcha. That does make sense. The numbers speak for themselves. You're flying to the pilot with the simulator.
Correct.
You're bringing the coursework and the knowledge to the people. And so there's a convenience factor involved there. Folks just need to take that 10 days off, from work if they're doing the whole 10 days.
We highly recommend that, since you've, brought an instructor in, you've carved out this time, is to focus on the training. But we do realize that these people are, that we're training, they're very successful people. So either they're small business owners, doctors, lawyers, farmers, engineers, you name it.
Actors,
yeah.
Producers.
So busy schedules. So we realize it can get demanding, but, it's usually an 8-hour day of training.
Okay.
And as I said, it consists of ground school, simulator time, and actual flight time.
Okay. Well, I like that. So prerequisite, have your private pilot certificate, pass IFR written.
Yes.
And have some time off from work. And then go to it. Get the professional instrument courses instructors to come to you. Do the wrap up if you only need a few days, a week or so.
Yeah.
Or do the entire 10 days if you're never ever. Just have that 40 hours of cross country time, which to me seems minimal in the first place.
It really isn't much, but if you're somebody new looking at it and, you just got your private, you come out of your private with 5 hours, right?
Yeah.
And now you look at, you're like, I've got to get 35 hours. So for an aircraft owner,
no big deal,
really,
right?
Not a big deal, but somebody that may be in a club or, renting, that's a big expense. So they look at it and they start kind of weighing it out. But I know we're kind of, wrapping up here, but I will have to say, so the combination with us is having, such a good program and so successful. I attribute that to three things. One is our instructors.
Okay.
The instructor staff that we have, it's comprised of so many different folks in terms of their background. The combination of being a good teacher and a good pilot.
Right.
The second thing is the syllabus that we bring.
Okay.
This syllabus was started in 1980 by Peter Dogan, and it's obviously been revised multiple times to reflect, the latest and greatest. So having, the simulator on top of it, so having those three things where we have a good instructor, a known structured program, and the simulator as well. Those three things really is the magic, as some people would say, the special sauce.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the instructor, the syllabus, and the known program, but basically you know how to make people learn. So that's the key.
Yes.
Good.
For those folks that are thinking about, particularly for the finish up, give us a call because we can kind of go through and really kind of give you a good estimate to see where you're at. I will have to say, those folks, and I'm not picking on you, Dave, but I don't know when's the last time you've done any instrument training, but it is a perishable skill.
Yes, I agree.
So, the folks that maybe have, 30, 40 hours from 5 or 6 years ago, you do have that hourly requirement. So you're closer to that. But in terms of proficiency, it may be slim to none. But that's the beauty of this program because we go through each chapter and there's nothing stopping you from expediting through it.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's 7 chapters in our workbook. So we're plowing through usually a chapter a day.
I like it. And I like it. I like having someone that's going to be a good mentor like Dale was to you,
Yes.
And I think that's important. And I think a lot of folks could reach out. iflyifr.com. What's the phone number again? One more time, Don.
So it is actually 800 ifly-IFR, but the simple one is 800-435-9437.
Well, very good, Don. We appreciate it. It's great. And thanks again for doing a quick sidebar on what you do for fun, flying the Mammal Watch. I think that's super cool. I think that's got to get a lot of folks involved and thinking about what else can they do with their private pilot certificate, with their instrument rating, a way to give back to the community. And I know for sure that I'm going to follow up with you about jumping into the PIC program and let's get this done.
Yeah, let's finally get you instrument rated after 20 some odd years. Get you filing and make life a little easier for you.
All right, thanks again, Donn Heikkila. We appreciate it so much. Thanks for joining us on Hangar Talk.
Thank you, Dave. All the best.
All right, so Jay, it was good to hear from Donn. It was real interesting that he and I made that connection from about 20 years ago.
That's awesome.
It is. And, in my case, I've been a long time instrument student, and I really think that finish up option might be really interesting for me to kind of, knock out that long delayed rating.
Definitely.
I hope to knock that off the list this year. Also, I am still doing my commercial studies about once a week. We have a study group, which is a great way for other people to study. I just might mention, have other colleagues and people that are interested, cheer you on, ask some questions, go over some of the results. But have an instructor come to you. I think that's a great way to go.
Oh, totally. I've got a friend, he finished up his instrument rating, but where I live in Austin, he had to go up to Dallas for a while, and being away from his young family, he's got a young son, that can be tough.
It is. It could be, especially for folks who have a family and a young growing family, such as yourself. All right, well, that's all the time we have today.
Our audio engineer is Austin Hansen.
And don't forget, you can find us at aopa.org/Hangar Talk or wherever you get your podcasts.
See you next time, David.
All right, see you then, Jay. Thanks.
Hangar Talk from AOPA, your freedom to fly.